as per the schedule, but a type of revision, discussion about the question answer, especially objective type questions and all. So today I will finish two things. One is this slide which I am showing right now. This is breeding for conservation of wild animals. And another will be the formation of new breeds. So that one I will talk in detail. So in this conservation of the wild animals, here, the wild animals which are showing the decreasing trend in their population size. Yesterday we have discussed about population that is the actual pure animal, then what will be the effective population size based on their sex ratios, then number of the young ones present in the population, adult one, then very aged one. So whatever is there in the population, the whole population, my population is, your population is 150, but in terms of effective size, my 100 population may be having more effective population size in terms of inbreeding. So in that way we have discussed. Then now what we should know for this conservation of the wild animal is, if a population is showing a decreasing trend due to certain factors like loss of the habitats, then natural calamities and all those things, those type of population we have to identify first, then the breeding related activities are to be strengthened accordingly. Then if such type of population, wild population is there whose population size is decreasing, then first we have to identify which one is that population, then accordingly we have to plan the breeding program to increase their population size. Now the conservation strategies, as we know, we have already discussed in that one also, conservation of the animals. So this conservation may be taken in their own natural habitats like wildlife sanctuary, that is also known as in situ conservations. Then in a place away from their natural habitats, this is known as ex situ conservations like zoo and all. So yesterday we discussed what is this captive breeding, what are the requirements and the limitations of the captive breeding. So here we'll not discuss in detail. Now coming to this captive breeding here, it plays a very great role in the conservation role. So as a demographic and a genetic reservoirs, as a reserve animals, this will act from which infusion of new blood may be obtained for wild population, means the animals which are bred in captive conditions, those animals may be reintroduced into the wild population, so they may act as a new blood, or they will act to increase the genetic variability of the wild populations. Then they will act as a source from which new population can be found. And at last, that one important aspect is for species which have no immediate chance of survival in the wild. So if any species is there whose survivability is very difficult there in the wild conditions, that is in the natural habitats, and for those animal, captive breeding is the last chance for its conservation. Then captive breeding institution also can play an important role in mobilizing public awareness of conservation issues. And here also captive breeding, there we can bring the publics about the requirements of this breeding so as to increase their population size and all. However, very few are located in the developing world like India, where major species losses are expected. Say, for example, our country is known to have many livestock and the wild animals, and is there are very high chance of losing many of the species. However, unfortunately, this type of captive breeding system, their numbers are very few. So this is the just opposite. That is the number of species required preservation is very high, but the number of facilities available are comparatively low. Then if we can provide, 1 minute please. If we can provide adequate financial assistance to our local institutions, that is the captive breeding facilities, they may become a better place than the overseas one, that is whatever is there in the other countries. Then this maintenance of the viable captive population of most, if not all, threatened species should therefore be an important component. Means captive breeding of some of the important wildlife species is an important component of the strategy to preserve the world's wildlife biodiversity. So ex situ or in situ conservation is just one of many options open to zoo managers and the wildlife managers. So these are the only two facilities where these zoo managers and the wildlife managers they can work for increasing the population size of the wildlife animals for their conservations, but often represents the only hope for species nearing extinction in the world. But in many cases, what we do is only for those animals which are very close to extinction, for them only we have taken the initiatives for conservation of the animals. But there may be many wildlife species which are decreasing in their population size due to many factors. Then again, coming to these zoos and the aquaria, that is for fish, they have the considerable capacity to preserve the threatened species. Even then also these zoos and the other aquaria, these two facilities, they may be very useful for many of the endangered species for their conservation. Then IUCN, there is International Union for Conservation of Nature, has categorized the threatened mammalian taxa, that is 34% as endangered, then 25% as vulnerable. This vulnerable may become endangered if we are not controlling this population size. In situ conservation efforts must be increasingly focused on localities of high species diversity and the endemisms. Then captive breeding is widely regarded as less cost effective than in situ. Here, captive breeding, it needs a lot of financial involvement, feeding of the animal, management, nutrition, all those aspects as compared to in situ, because in situ, like your wildlife sanctuary, their animals are there, that their nutritional requirement, time to time we may support, but the cost involvement in case of in situ conservation is less as compared to that of captive breeding. Then coming to the different projects which are in our country, those are known as Wild Animals Project for wild animals in India. So first is, as we are very much aware that India is one of the 17 mega diversities in the world, and India, our country, is the home to 7.6% of all mammal, is a huge proportion, then 12.6% of the bird, 6.2% of the reptile, and 6% of the flowering plant species. So in this way, our country is considered to be the one of the 17 mega diversity in the world. So many wildlife species and the mammals, they are in our country. Then keeping in view of the human encroachment, the government of India, see here many other times these natural habitats of the wildlife species, there is encroachment from the human activities. Due to that, the area is losing its natural resources, and then the wildlife species, those are there in that type of natural habitats, are losing their home. That is the forest or this. So in this way, the government, they have initiated certain projects that is known as FAST. The most important one is Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. So due to this one, this particular act prohibits trade of rare and endangered species. There are many rare and endangered species in our country. So many a times they are killed by the encroachers, and these animals, for their skin, for their bone, for their teeth, and for their hair, fur, something that way. So due to these ones, a rhino for their horn and all, people are keep on killing and in their natural habitat. So due to this act, these particular activities are prohibited. If anybody is found to involve in such type of activities, then they are punished as per the law of the country. Then there are certain projects which are related to the wildlife breeding. So the first one is crocodile breeding projects, then elephant project, Project Lion, Project Tigers, and one by one we'll see it. So then coming to this crocodile breeding project here, there are 3 types of species. One is the mugger or freshwater or swamp crocodile, then gharial, here the very long, this one. Then the saltwater or stearine crocodile. So their numbers are keep on reducing. So therefore, the government of India, they felt that their conservation policy should be there by having the crocodile breeding project. Then it was initiated in the year 1975, that is the 1st April. And the objectives of the project were to continue the task of locating best crocodile areas within the country. First is to identify the areas where crocodiles are mostly available or found, and then to collect eggs as soon as possible after laying. And these collected eggs, they are to be transferred to the central protection area for hatchery, incubation, and to rear the young ones until it assumes the size for release back in the wild. So in this way, what they are doing is they used to collect these eggs and they are put for hatchery in a very safe area, and then they rear the young ones till the maturity. Once they become mature, again they are released to the wild conditions. In this way, they try to increase the population size of this type of crocodile species. Coming to the elephant project here, this project was initially officially started in the year 1991-92, but it was launched in the year 1993 by the central government. And the objectives of this elephant project were to identify the limiting factors of the habitat and to remove it by the management. Means there may be certain limiting factors in its natural habitat. What are those factors? First, we have to identify. Then to adopt systematic management plans, then a well-planned system should be there. Then to eliminate human exploitations and the disturbances. Then many a times these people, they used to go to the jungle and the forest, then for this collection of the wood and some other materials. So that's why they are disturbing the natural habitats of this elephants. So those things should be eliminated by this type of project. Then to build up the elephant habitat to reduce limiting factors. Then this project will aim to reconstruct the natural habitat of the elephant. Then to develop the elephant by planting and propagating the favorite food plants of the elephant. So in this way, these many objectives, if they are fulfilled, then the number of elephants, their population will be increased in its natural habitat. Then coming to the Project Lion here, lion in the top carnivore in the food chain of the ecosystem. They are very much important in our ecosystem to maintain the food chain. Then in 1972, this project was initiated in India accordingly to facilitate successful breeding of the lions. The objectives of these projects were shifting of all Maldaris from sanctuary and their resettlement outside it. The people who were staying in that particular sanctuary, they were transferred and given settlement outside of that particular sanctuary. Then construction of the barricades along the water resources to prevent entry of the cattle. Then fencing of the periphery of the Gir sanctuary. This is in the Gujarat by dry rubble wall of 1 meter. So this way they try to construct these peripheries, then barricades and shifting of the people staying in that Gir sanctuary area in Gujarat. By doing this way, Government of India wanted to protect the natural habitats of this our Asiatic lion, which is considered as the state animal of Gujarat also. So this way, they want to minimize these human interferences within this ecosystem, securing of full cooperations of the legislators, public and the Maldaris. So in this way, they seek the cooperations from the many agencies or public or private. Then in this way, the habitat of the lions, that is the Gir region of Gujarat, can be protected and can be improved for better survivability of the Asiatic lion. Then coming to the Project Tiger here. So here, Indian Board for Wildlife, they recommended for having this type of tiger project because our tigers, they are almost, especially this white color, their numbers are decreasing, they are endangered, and very few numbers are available in the country. This was started in the year 1973, this project Tiger was. Then many tiger reserves were started and tiger conservation was aimed in this. So many conservation policies. The breeding of the tigers was facilitated by improvement of the tiger habitat, by identifying the limiting and factors of the habitat for tiger population. So in this way, this government of India, they implemented this project to identify the many factors or limiting factors which are playing significant role in decreasing the natural habitats of the tiger. Then here, what they do is they have taken many strategies to improve the natural habitats of the tiger by fire protection, disease control, shifting of the villages inside the tigers reserve areas, grazing control for the livestock species like cattle, sheep, goat, development of water resources inside the habitats, enhancement of the research and population estimation, etc. In this way, this project works to increase the population size of the tiger for their conservation. Then this particular project tiger has a significant success in recovery of their habitat and in increasing the size of the population, say from a very few number, that is 268 in 9 reserves in 1972, see 268 in the 9 reserves in 1972. Now it becomes 1,000 in 28 reserves. In terms of reserves, tiger reserves also, they are increased, and in terms of the population also it is increased in 2006. Then after 10 years, that is in the 2016, the tiger population becomes 2,000 plus. So now their population is keep on increasing after having this type of tiger project. So this is the end of your conservation for breeding for conservation of the wildlife animals. Now I will be going to the next slide, that is the formation of new breed. Here I will tell you one thing, that formation of new breed is a very important topic, especially for your short notes and so now the last part of the theory portion is formation of new breeds of livestock and the poultry. Let us see here. New breed formation, why we have so many number of cattle breeds, sheep breeds, goat breeds in our country, and different countries are also having then very good number of the breeds of different livestock and the poultry species. Even then also the animal breeders, sometimes they feel that these new breeds are all again required. Then let us see here for what purposes these animal breeders are trying to develop a new breed even after having so many number of breeds, say 50 in our country. Even then also, why we want more or a new breed. So here what they want is combinations may be made to realize the many benefits of heterosis. Means, as I told, this formation of new breed, the basis is crossbreeding. Crossbreeding means breeding between different breeds. It may be 2 breeds, it may be 3 breeds, it may be more than that one. So in this way, what they do is by mixing of the different breeds, we make a foundation stock, which is known as crossbred. And this crossbred, they inherited certain characteristics of both the parents. Then what we do after mixing these things, then we try to select as per our interest. So those things I will discuss in the later part here. Why we are crossing, we want to take the benefits of heterosis, and heterosis is we need a new type of breed which is well suited to our prevailing conditions, because the existing breeds are not suitable for these prevailing conditions. That means we need another one which possesses so and so characteristics as per our interest. Then some producers, sometimes what they feel is they want to have their unique populations. So in this way, animal breeders, they are trying to develop a new breed. Then regardless of the motivations, that means for what purpose we should go for a new breed. Irrespective of those things, there are many institutes or agencies who are working for formation of new breed. So here, what are the steps for new breed formations? The first step is we will make a gene pool, as I discussed already, by mixing of the two or more breeds. Then these genes are present in one breed, they are mixed with the genes present in another breed by doing this crossbreeding. From there, we will go for selection. Selection for what? Selection of the, then this formation of the gene pool may be by using two breeds or more than two breeds, depending upon the requirements of the breeder. Say, for example, a breeder is just like a flower arrangement. If you are interested only red and the white flowers, I need red, white, and the yellow flowers to have a good arrangement. So like that. So as per the requirements of the person, there is the animal breeders, they may utilize only two breeds as the foundation stock or more than two breeds. So when we use only two parental breeds, what we do is we will go for the fast crossing, that is the F1 generations. Then this F1 generation, so many animals who have produced, they will be mated together, that is known as inter-seed mating. Then they will form the F2, again inter-seed mating, then F3, so on, like that. So then, sometimes what happens, as we know, in the first generation, that is F1, the genetic level of inheritance from both the parental side, they are 50-50. But sometimes what we feel, I want is more than 50%. Say, sometimes I need a 37.5% only from one breed, or 62.5%, or 75%. So different level of inheritance from one particular breed. Say, for example, if we cross Holstein Friesian with our Thar Parker, then fast cross is having 50-50%. But our interest is we should have, instead of 50% level of inheritance from the Holstein Friesian, that is the exotic cattle, we want 75%. So that means we need to go for back crossing. So in this way, as per the level of inheritance desired by us, we will go for certain type of back crossing to get that level of inheritance. That we will see later on. So then in every generations, from F1 generation onwards, what we should do is we'll be selecting those individuals possessing the desirable characteristics. For what purpose we have crossed two breeds or more than two breeds. We want to produce certain crossbreeds. All of those crossbreeds, they may not be similar in their performance level, in their physical characteristics like coat color. So in this way, those animals which are possessing or having the traits of our interest, inherited from both the parents, those individuals are selected for breeding purpose, because our assumption is those animals are possessing those type of genes. Then again in the F2, due to the segregation of the genes, some of the individuals will be having the desired characteristics of our interest. Then some are not having, maybe in terms of the coat color, I don't want white coat color. Some animals are there, we have to remove from the population. So like that, we'll go for 4 to 5 generations, minimum of 4 to 5 generations of this type of interbreeding, that is inter-seed mating, selection, breeding. Why for we are doing this one? We want to remove those unwanted genes. Those unwanted genes which causes undesirable characteristics. So that's why those individuals having undesirable characteristics, we are keep on removing from the population. By removing them, we are removing the unwanted genes. Then finally, after 4 to 5 generations, most of the genes of our interest, they are fixed in the populations. Then the individuals of the whole populations, they will start behaving almost similarly in terms of their characteristics, in terms of their performance. Then those characteristics are of our interest. Now, finally, we declare that this particular population is now stabilized. They are now stable in terms of their performance, in terms of their core characteristics, in terms of their physical characteristics. And so we may call them as a breed, as a new breed or a synthetic breed. We have synthesized a breed. So these are the certain steps for formation of the new breed. So here I am showing these photographs. Applause are small. Brown Swiss, this is the exotic cattle. When we cross with the Sahiwal, they produce a crossbred. That is F1 generation, then F2 generation. Why what we are doing here is we want to have the inheritance of those desirable characteristics present in Sahiwal and present in Brown Swiss. As we know, Sahiwal is our native cattle. They are known for their heat tolerance, disease tolerance, and adaptability in these agroclimatic conditions. That means those genes are present in this particular breed. Then Brown Swiss is known for their milk production. That is the genes responsible for higher milk production. They are present in them. So in this way, by doing their crossbreeding, we'll get a crossbred offspring which inherited the desirable characteristics of the Sahiwal and the desirable characteristics of the Brown Swiss. Those two desirable characteristics present in the two different breeds, that is Sahiwal and the Brown Swiss, we want to mix it together and to make it present in only one breed. That is a new breed called Currant Swiss. Now we'll see it. This is the Currant Swiss, a new breed which was formed in National Dairy Research Institute, Karnal, located in Haryana. So this is the parental breeds were Holstein Friesian and the Tharparker. Then the percentage level was around 37.5% to 50% of the Holstein Friesian. I am showing here the flow chart. Holstein Friesian is crossed with the Tharparker. Tharparker is our native breed known for its adaptability, and it is a dual purpose breed. Then we produce a Currant Fries, and here down photograph is the Currant Fries, a new breed. So the inheritance level from the Holstein Friesian is not 50%. It is in between 37.5% to 50%. Means we don't want more inheritance level from the Holstein Friesian, because if it is increased, then reproductive efficiency of this Currant Fries will be reduced. That's why they included only around 37 to 50% of Friesian inheritance. Now, and as I thought, Tharparker breed is known for their high adaptability, and HF is for milk production. Then coming to the Currant Swiss, and again it was also synthesized at NDRI, that is a Karnal, along with the Currant Fries. Then it was developed by crossing Sahiwal and the Brown Swiss. Here what you should know, dear students, you should know the names as well as the place where it was developed and the parental breeds. Then another point you have to remember, that is the inheritance level for your objective type question. So here, the inheritance level from the Brown Swiss in the Currant Swiss is from 50 to 75%, whereas in case of Currant Fries, that was 37.5% to 50%. So here the inheritance level from the exotic cattle is in the higher side. So this is the flow chart. Brown Swiss is crossed with Sahiwal, then Currant Swiss is produced, or it was formed as a new breed at NDRI Karnal. So here, so this Currant Swiss is a dual purpose breed, and I will not speak much about this one, but they resemble Sahiwal in terms of their body size and the general appearance. On this information I will be giving to you people, so don't worry if you want to read in detail. Then coming to the another breed, that is a Frieswal. The name itself says it is the cross between Friesian and the Sahiwal. So it was developed in PDC Meerut. That is a project directed on cattle, Meerut, Uttar Pradesh. There, So here the Frieswald breed will have around 62%, that is 50 to 62% Friesian, then around 38 to 50% Sahiwal inheritance. So here the inheritance level from the Holstein Friesian is in the higher side as compared to Sahiwal. So this is the new breed. What they do is, this is PDC Merit in association with many military dairy farm. They produce so many crossbreds using this Holstein Friesian. Those animals they utilize for formation of this new breed, that is Frieswald. Then coming to the Sunandini, this is the new breed synthesized in Kerala, that is under the Indo-Swiss project in Kerala. What they did, they use this nondescript, that is the local cattle of Kerala, to cross with the brown Swiss. Then slowly and slowly what they do, those crossbred which they produce by crossing with the brown Swiss, they were again crossed with Jersey and later on with the Holstein Friesian. So in this way, this Sunandini, it had the foundation stock of more than 2 breeds, that is brown Swiss, local cattle, Jersey, and ISEP. So in this way, as per our requirement, we may mix or add another breed again to get some of the desirable characteristics present in that breed. Then coming to the Jersin here, this Jersin is, the name says Jersey and the Red Sindhi. Foundation breeds, as I mentioned, it is Jersey and Red Sindhi. These were the crossbreds between 3/8 and 5/8, means the Jersey level was very low here. So it was developed in the Agricultural Institute, Naini, Allahabad, UP. During this British time, so many institutes, they were producing this crossbred to meet out the milk requirement during our pre-independence time. Especially Britishers, they require milk. Then they imported many of the these exotic germplasms like Jersey, brown Swiss, ISR, your Holstein Friesian, then they cross with our native breeds. In this way, so many crossbreds they produce, and they did the breeding intentionally, knowingly or unknowingly among these crossbred. Then finally, a new breed has come up. So those breeds, one is Jersin here. Then another is Taylor breed, is in the Patna, Bihar. How they developed this was, there was one Mr. William Taylor. He was the commissioner of the Patna in the year 1856, that is before independence. What they did, he imported some of the Taurus bulls, that is the European cattle, Shorthorn and the Channel Island bulls from the United Kingdom, and he crossed it with the local cows. Then so many these foundation breeds were used in this type of crossing. He used English breed, he used Sahiwal, he used Haryana, then local breeds of the Bihar also. Then finally, they developed this name, a new breed, Tyler, with for the recognition of this person, William Tyler. So the main characteristics of this Tyler breed is absence of hump and the dewlap. As we know, European cattle, that is Taurus cattle, they are humpless. Our Indian cattle, they are humped. When they are crossed together, most of the crossbred offspring, they don't possess hump, that is absence of hump. That means the genes responsible for humpless character is dominant over hump condition. So that's why crossbreeding can be used to study about the pattern of inheritance of certain characteristics like that. Then in the abroad, other than our country, many countries they develop, especially I am giving here certain names. One is Jamaica Hope. It was developed in Jamaica, say West Indies, that contains about 80% Jersey, 15% Sahiwal, 5% Holstein breeds. I'm giving only 3 breeds they use for this Jamaica Hope. Then American Brahman cattle breed, then foundation breeds were several Bos Indicus cattle of India. What they do here, they imported from our country this ongol, this ghee, they mix it, this Brahman means those cattle breeds taken from our country. Then they develop especially a beef cattle, and by utilizing many of our cattle breeds. Then another is Santa Gertrudis. Here, this breed was evolved by crossing of the shorthorns with the Brahmans. Brahman means Indian cattle in the year 1920s and 30s. So here, and one more thing I want to mention here, in case of cattle, formation of a new breed, it takes around 20 to 30 years, say 4 to 5 generations. If we assume that generational interval in case of cattle is 4 years, then we need around 5-6 generations. That means 4 into 5 is 20. That is when we are doing everything after completion of one generation. That is after 4 years, again another generation starts. But in practical way, it is not possible. So it takes around minimum of 20 years to 30 years. So that way, if you are asked to form a new breed, that means your whole lifetime, that your active service life will be required for formation of a new breed, especially in case of cattle, which has a long generation interval. But in case of poultry, in case of pig, in case of sheep and goat, then you can finish it within 5 to 6 years in case of pig and in case of poultry. So like that, people, they are going for. Then coming to this one, your Giriraja chicken, which you might have seen here in our institute, our farm, Giriraja. This was the new variety or new breed of poultry released in the year 2005 by Karnataka Veterinary Animal Fishery Sciences University, Bangalore. So this is the breed which was developed by Bangalore and released in the year 2005. Then they release another breed, or they form another breed, that is Swarnadhara chickens for egg production. Then this project Directorate on Poultry Hyderabad, that is in the Andhra Pradesh, they also developed that your Banaraja, which we are having in our college, Banaraja, that name is. Then again, our Central Avian Research Institute, Keri, Ijatnagar, Bareilly, UP. It is near IBRI. They are in the same campus, but we call it as a Keri. They also develop many, that is Keri Bro, Keri Devendra, so many new breeds. So those lists I will be providing to you people. Don't worry, because sometimes they all of a sudden they may ask in your objective type questions. So we have to at least make us familiar with these names. So this way I am finishing your class today here. All of you, thank you very much for your attending the class. Okay. So tomorrow there will be a common class at 11 for SGB along with the Jaluki students. Okay, the link will be provided. So you please attend that class also. Okay, bye for today, all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay.